If you have not followed his Triple H horse racing podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.
Good evening and welcome to the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm your proud host, Howard Kravitz. Thank you very much for joining us tonight live here Monday night. It is Kentucky Derby week. Can you feel the energy? Can you feel the love? We are here to talk exclusively about the 2025 Kentucky Derby, just that race alone. Everything it's about, our predictions, race flow, past performances, video replays, everything you'd like to know about this year's Derby, we're going to be discussing right here on the HHH Racing Podcast in the next hour. Before I bring on my wonderful co-host to help me discuss the Kentucky Derby, please make sure you hit that subscribe button on the bottom right-hand side of the screen, hit that notification bell on the top right, and smash that like button, that thumbs up button below the video player. We'd greatly appreciate it. Our viewership and our support has been tremendous already. Thousands, literally thousands of views, upwards of 4,000 views on some of our shows already on YouTube. Please check us out on YouTube. You can just simply go to type in HHH Racing Podcast in the search bar. You can also listen to this show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. And we have a fantastic website, which we'll get to a little bit later in the show, hhhracingpodcast.com. I've got an incredible expert crew waiting in the background, anxiously waiting to come on to talk about this year's Kentucky Derby in detail. Let me go ahead and bring on my group for tonight. First of all, co-host of Picks and Ponies from the Saratoga Special and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Mr. Paul Halloran. From the East Coast of Maryland, co-host of Picks and Ponies, Pete Visco. Host of Bettin' and Boozin', now hails from Wisconsin, formerly from the Chicago area, Mr. Kyle Roscoe. And West Coast Spies himself, junior at the University of Kentucky, studying, majoring in equine studies, and host of Pacific Horse Players, Noah Maher. Gentlemen, it is time to talk details in depth in the 2025 Kentucky Derby. Pete, how you doing tonight, first of all?
I'm good. What's happening, Howard? What's happening, everybody?
I mean, this is what you're all here for, right? This is what everyone's here for, is the Kentucky Derby preview for 25. And Pete, I'm so glad I didn't wear that shirt because I have
you
that.
Have this one? You have that one?
If not, it's very similar. So I'm glad I didn't.
I don't even know what year. I don't even remember what. Oh, the 146. So that's
there you go. Mine was 150, obviously last year's. So
yeah.
But
either way, I like. Is that a hoodie, Pete? Is that kind of a hood kind of?
It is, and it's got the. I think it has the. Oh no, it's got the symbol on the back. I forgot which one this was. Yeah.
Very nice. Paul, how you doing this evening? We got a big week, of course. This is, if you ask Matt Bernier, a good friend of the show, good friend of mine, he actually thinks the Breeders' Cup week is better and just the races overall are better. I'm not going to argue that, but there's only one Derby every year, of course, and this one is Saturday, sir.
Well, Matt's correct as usual, but it is still, it's a damn good 2 days of racing, though. I will say that. I just plotting my way through Friday's card over the last hours, and I will continue when when the teacher Pete dismisses us for the night till Pete. Our next show's at 11 tonight. I don't know if you're aware of that.
I mean, might as well just do. We might as
Then
well
we
just
have one
stay
at
on
3.
here. Yeah,
you got the one about 3 a.m. right? You got that one, Pete?
I do. I think I'm just going to sit on here 24/7 for the next
yes,
week.
Pete. See, now you're thinking.
No,
it's a great week.
To wake me up if you need me to
it's,
talk about it.
It's a lot of fun. And, it's the one day a year where the rest of the world comes into the world that we live in 365 days a year.
Absolutely. Noah, I got a quick question. Do you remember the first Derby you watched, what year it was, or who won the race, or your first recollection of the Kentucky Derby?
I think the first one that I kind of started paying attention to was California Chrome. Obviously, there was a big story in my area with Art Sherman, and I trained at Los Al's, so I remember watching those races. Oh, you got it up there?
Somewhere back there, if my finger would work correctly. Yeah, right there is California.
I remember there was a lot of buzz and excitement, and I just thought it was so interesting. And one of the vivid memories I actually have was him losing in the Belmont, which is kind of sour, but it was such a great story, and kind of first how I remember this big race and big event.
Yeah, it's quite amazing. I mean, we could talk about this forever, but we won't. I was a little bit of a late bloomer. So my first recollection, I think, of the Derby might have been winning colors in, what was that, 88, I believe, Paul? I remember when a girl won the Derby, and I remember how cool that was. I was already like a junior in high school, but again, I was a little bit of a late bloomer when it came to starting off in this game. Guys, we got a lot to talk about. Let's jump right in. First of all, a little historical background, and we have a lot of people watching. If you have any questions in the chat, and Pete, Paul, Noah, Kyle, if you see a question in the chat, I have the Derby Media Guide on the side here, and I can answer a lot of questions that people might have. And look, we're pretty knowledgeable, but there's a lot of information out there. So if someone has a legitimate question about the Derby that they're curious about, I will be happy to look it up, or one of my great co-hosts could, mention it to me, and I'll go ahead and look it up when I'm not speaking. Before we get to the horses, guys, and recent winners, let's see what we've got in the chat. Of course, Katie, this will be fun. No doubt about it. Christopher's here. Heard Citizen Bull had a good workout today. Still no way wiring this from the one hole. Chris, you're a smart man. I think all of us would pretty much agree with that. Baller, now $50 win bet. We're going to do that right away, guys, here after this. So if you're waiting for that, see who's going to win the $50 win bet, it's coming right up. We got a lot of people in the chat. Please be active in the chat and continue to comment, and we'll get to you. All right, guys, let's do this right away. We're going to do it quickly. Someone, Ponies on Demand, got to meet Ryan.
Sorry, Noah and Ryan. Sorry, I brought that up.
Oh, and Noah, too.
Yeah.
Yes. Nice. Thanks, Ponies. Appreciate it. Well, you met some legends in their own right. I mean, not anyone else's. $50 win bet. Here it comes, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not going to make it wait any longer. There are, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think there's 10 people in the running. Here's what's going to happen. Let me bring it on screen for everyone right now, and then we're going to get into the handicapping of the Kentucky Derby. So there it is, the spinner. We're going to spin it. Whoever wins these are people that already correctly picked journalism to get the 8 hole. If you win this, I will be contacting you through YouTube. Again, let me put myself on screen. So if the spinner lands on you, I will contact you below the video player on YouTube where you initially put your bet. Again, I will contact you through YouTube where you initially put your bet during our Derby draft show. And actually, we're going to pick 2 people, one alternate in case we can't get in touch with that other person. Gentlemen, who's going to win a free $50 win bet in the Derby? Let's find out. Here comes the spinner. And it's going to be, they're approaching the wire, and J-Town, 5935. Congratulations to J-Town. I'm going to go ahead and make sure I don't need to write it down. I'll remember that. You are officially the winner of the $50 free win bet. We are going to pick one person as an alternate in case we cannot get in touch with J-Town 5935. I was supposed to remove him. That's okay. If we spin again, he wins again. He's the alternate too. I mean, what the hell? No, we'll spin a second.
By the way, Howard, we are recording this, so in case you need to reference back.
Is that what we're doing? Oh, look at this, guys.
There we go. He's the best.
Nah, we can't do that. That's incredible. Let me remove that person.
I want to know who J-Town likes in the race, because that's what we really
kidding.
Really, that's what we need to do, guys. All right. Let's see. The alternate is going to be. Oh, he's the one that want to know who's going to win. Onderock 775. Okay, there you go. Onderock 775 or Anderock. If we cannot get in touch with the first person, you will win that. All right, let's go ahead, guys, on to what I wanted to. What we're all waiting here for, which is the Kentucky. Let me take this off the screen. Before we get into the horse specifically, Paul, of anyone on the screen, you're probably the biggest historian on this screen, and you probably appreciate the most some history of this stakes. Let me go ahead and bring it on right now for everyone. We're not going to obviously go through 151 runnings, but here are some recent winners. I think people can read this. Of course, Mystic Dan last year broke the hearts of this podcast with a nose victory in a three-way photo, winning in a relatively slow time, actually 2:03 and change, was 18.6 to 1. If you look on the right side of the screen, you can see it all. Mage 2 years ago, Rich Strike, what an unbelievable ride and upset that was at 80.8 to 1. Absolutely incredible. Mandaloon, of course, in the controversial win in 21, and then Authentic, who, by the way, is the sire of Rodriguez and maybe some others, guys. I'm not sure exactly who, to be very honest, but we can look that up. So there's a little history from the this decade. All right, guys.
Not the best group of five that you could get together in this race.
Well, what does that say? What does that say, if anything, Paul, to you? Honestly.
Well, it's we've talked about it many times. It has the potential to be a one-off. It doesn't have. There was a good streak of favorites running second, but that particular group, Authentic is legit. Went on and won the Classic. Although I will tell you this, and I will go to my grave, if that race were running the first Saturday in May when it was supposed to be, there is no possible way Tiz the Law was losing that race on the first Saturday in May. All you got to do is see him run at Saratoga in June, like I did. So, but anyway, it is just not the most distinguished quintet of Derby history.
Hey, Paul, looking at that list makes me think we should just spin the wheel and scrap this whole show, and then that'll pick the winner. We might have a better chance.
So it is the Derby.
We're trying to be optimistic.
That's true. That is true. I'm trying to cash a ticket, and I don't know if I had any of those on that screen, unfortunately. Actually, no, Mandaloon I did, so that was all right.
For our young guns, Kyle and Noah, here are the post-position draw. Just very quick, guys, 20 seconds. Your first reaction when you saw the post-position draw, either a horse that got a bad or good draw, or maybe an odds you think that was completely out of whack or extremely accurate. I know there's a lot of questions there, Kyle. You can pick any of those, like literally snapshot, and then Noah, you'll go next.
I mean, I'm not trying to give away my picks here later, but I think every single person in the entirety of horse racing was looking to see where one horse drew. And it kind of solidified everything that I was hoping for would be. Obviously, journalism getting the 8 is about as good as anything gets in this race. He didn't get the 1. He didn't get the 20. Perfectly in the middle, and should be exactly what, where he wants to do, and should get a perfect trip. I don't know. Noah, again, I hate to rag on the kid, but Sandman getting 6 to 1 is insanity, in my opinion, on that horse. And 17 obviously doesn't do him any favors to the outside.
Well, that's definitely going to go down. And it's so unfortunate for our guy, Charlie, that 17 is the only one that hasn't won. But I think I said this on the show when we did the live reaction. I think if you're the connections of 7 through 10, you got to be pretty happy with where you're at, considering you've got 2 speeds to the inside, and then East Avenue's 2 out from Grande. So if you're 7 through 10, you got to be pretty happy. And then I think the one I thought couldn't have really benefited from that was Rodriguez, just because we've seen what American Promise is most likely going to do from what we've seen from him in the morning. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with those 2 Baffords, the 1 and the 4, and how they find themselves early.
Yeah, let's say at the end of the day, there's just a lot of speed to the inside.
Yeah.
I think is the biggest takeaway there from the draw too.
Let's go ahead and talk about the pace situation, guys. This has been talked about quite a bit already, but to me, it's one of the major stories of the Derby every single year. And this year, I'll tell you what, Pete, I can't remember a Derby, and I have to go back and look at them. I can't remember a Derby as I go ahead and bring on the pace projector right now. I can't remember a Derby with this much speed on the inside. This is, we're going to be talking about time form quite a bit because they just do a tremendous job, in my opinion. Whoops, sorry, didn't want to do that. I want to do that. Your thoughts here on the pace projector? I think everyone can see that pretty well. Pete, they've got East Avenue on top with Owen Almighty in second and Neo Equus in third, and then right behind that, Citizen Bull Rodriguez and American Promise. Your thoughts, Pete?
I mean, yeah, if you look at those top 6, right, it isn't at least on paper or in theory, the only way any of them can win this race theoretically is to get on the lead, right? I mean, I don't know if there's, I mean, what, Paul? What are you saying? You're shaking your head down there?
No, I disagree with that.
Which one do you disagree with?
I think East Avenue can win without being on the lead.
Yeah, but
he's not going to be on. By the way, there is zero chance the one worked 58-2 this morning. Okay, yeah. From the rail with Martin Garcia doing his quarter horse jockey impersonation. There is no way the one is not going to lead in this race. No disrespect to our friends at Time Form.
But Paul, for East Avenue, there's been no evidence up until this point that he could win in any other fashion. Do you agree with that?
That's fair.
Okay.
I would agree with that.
That's why I said in theory, based on performance, based on what we see on paper, I don't think any of those horses can win from off it. I think maybe people think Rodriguez a bit, but he hasn't shown that yet. So to me, they have to go at least to get themselves in some sort of position, and that just leads to what we expect to be, and I think hope to be for some of us, a hot pace.
Kyle, before I let you,
you're good. Go for it.
I'm going to let you respond here in a second, Kyle, but I just want to make sure everyone's clear is watching tonight. We have already done individual deep dives on every single horse. Kyle had a show last week that is entitled The Top 10 Long Shots, so he covered the bottom 10. Myself, Paul, and Pete last night covered the top 10. Just go on our YouTube page. You can find all that information. So obviously we are going to talk about individual horses, but this is more an overall look at the race itself. And we'll get into, who we think is going to win and Raceful as we're doing now. And then right after the show, there is a live show called How Do You Bet the Derby, where our younger guys are going to talk about superfectas, trifectas, doubles, how you actually want to bet. Because handicapping is one thing, betting the race is another. Kyle, go ahead.
Very different. And then I was just going to add to the pace projector. I mean, Admire Daytona also, who's the 6, who Time Form, obviously, with them coming from overseas, doesn't have any pace data on them. He was on the lead in the UAE Derby as well. So you'd have to imagine that he's going to be somewhere towards the front. So it's just as what you guys mentioned. It's going to be very, at least in theory, knock on every single bit of wood I have in here. For all of us, I think, based on our top picks, it should be a fast pace.
Pete, I know you'd appreciate this. Noah, your thoughts again. If everyone look on the right side of the screen, there's your top early and top late. You know what I found fascinating, Noah, just as a general overview? How about the best top late pace rating in this race is journalism, with all these huge dead closers that come from the clouds, and they have journalism's actually the best closer in this race. So not only is he, I think we could all admit he's the best horse in this race, he's also the top late figs in a race that figures to have a hot pace.
No, I think that's really interesting. And to go back to what we were saying, I actually wanted to ask Paul a question. Paul, with East Avenue, would you rather Manny, break and then just kind of stay wide throughout the stretch the first time, or would you rather him try to kind of tuck over as soon as he can?
I want to see him sitting. I want to see him, Noah, like 4th or 5th, sitting off 3. But you might not see it. Bob Baffert is not stupid, okay, and Martin Garcia is going to follow orders. I believe that workout by Citizen Bull today was very intentional, and I believe it's Bob trying to send a message to some of the other speed horses. Hey, if you want to run with us early, it's going to be a suicide mission, and you have no chance. And by that, hoping he may get Citizen Bull on an easier lead than he should. Now that's pure theory, but it's damn cogent, isn't it, Uncle Howard?
It's definitely interesting. Let me just I have a mad respect for two people in this game. One of them is definitely David Aragona, and the other is Gino Picola, who now works for DRF. They had an interesting show video that they presented, I think, today, talking about how it is possible this pace is not going to be as hot as people think. Let me just throw out a scenario to everyone, and we never know, guys. You've got I just want to go start from the inside because that's where the horses are. I think we all agree Citizen Bull's going to go. Now, trainer talk. Look, trainers, jockeys, sometimes they're completely full of crap. Safi, I've heard Safi twice now say that they're hoping Neo Echoes can just sit in behind. I'm not saying he's going to be 20 back, but just sit just off and maybe make a run and get a piece. I don't think Neo Echoes is sending crazy, guys. That would surprise me. We know Final Gambit is going to come behind. Rodriguez, I think, could sit a great trip in this race in the pocket right off of his stablemate. That's how I project it. I would be shocked if Rodriguez is on the lead at the first quarter of this race. I really would. Okay. So let's just say he, again, rates a little bit, right? American Promise, D-Wayne's probably going, but he won the Colonial Derby sitting off of Getaway Car. Now, not way off, but he was off him. I don't think D-Wayne has to dead send with this horse. Do we really know how fast Admir Daytona is early? We don't know. It is Christophe Lemaire. I mean, he's quick. Is he as quick as the others? I would have a hard time believing that. We'll see. Obviously not Luxor Cafe. So my point is, I think East Avenue's going to rate, as Paul said, and then you really don't have a major speed horse in this race until Owen Almighty. And look, even if Almighty is on a complete dead send, no, he's still got to cross all the way over from the 20. So I'm going to ask everyone in the panel, and then we're going to switch topics off of the pace scenario. I'm going to go reverse order. Start with Noah, Paul. We'll go reverse order from this on the screen. Noah, do you see any scenario where it might be? It's not going to be slow, but could be moderate with Citizen Bull of the lead and like East Avenue sitting just off, and a lot of horses, sitting just behind? Or do you just think that's just not realistic at all?
I don't know. I just have a hard time believing that Owen Almighty is going to let East Avenue do what he did in the Bluegrass, where they were just kind of content to let him go, and obviously it didn't work out for him. So I feel like if you're them, you kind of have to go, and then if you don't, that kind of poses the question, well, what the hell are you doing in the race? So,
well, go is one thing. He's definitely going. The question is he going to go so much where he's going to go up and press Citizen Bull for the lead? I have a hard time seeing that.
I think he should, but he's probably not fast enough to do that.
Paul, any scenario where it might not be as quick as we think?
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. Yeah, and based on what I said earlier about, but I do think Owen Almighty is going to be a dead send and is going to do it. There's one who he can't win any other way, and he did not do well at the post draw, obviously, to try to get over from there. So, but I agree with you about Rodriguez. I don't think Rodriguez is a serious win threat myself, but I do agree with you on this. I'd be shocked if he were ahead of Citizen Bull go to the turn in this race.
Kyle, two questions for you and Pete. We had banners last year. I didn't want to create banners this year. Just going to sort of free flow it here. Two questions for you and Pete. Number one, who's going to have a lead at the first turn, which is basically just after the first quarter? And give me some quarter and half mile times for the 2025 Kentucky Derby, Kyle. Your guess.
At Citizen Bulls, I think is going to have the lead at the quarter pole from the one post, and I think while there could be a scenario, I think they're going to go quick. I think it's going to be probably not as suicidal as last year, but I wouldn't be surprised to see like 23 flat or 22-4 and somewhere like 45-3 or something like along that type of regard. Just quick enough, but not obscenely suicidal as we've seen in the past couple. For that matter,
I'd say 45-3 going a mile and a quarter.
That's fast.
Borderline
Absolutely.
suicidal.
Oh,
Pete, who's on the lead, and give me a quarter, and half mile time.
They went
guess
44
right
the other year.
I actually was similar to Kyle. I was going to say basically the same thing because I think what happens, I think we're talking about is logic, and there's a lot of logic in the conversation beforehand. But when the gate opens, people get a little crazy, and that's what we've seen in these paces. And they go because they're like, I don't want to get stuck, or there's horses coming over, or I feel like if I don't get over, I'm going to be hung 12 wide. So I think what happens is they freak out a little bit, even the most experienced jockeys, and they just go, and their horse wants to go, and they follow. And I think it's going to be just like Kyle said. It'll probably be Citizen Bull, but what if Citizen Bull breaks a touch slow from the one just for some reason? Then they're going to be coming down on top of him, and he's not going to get the lead potentially.
Yeah. I just want to be careful, and also we want to be accurate. The quarter pole is actually right after the wire. The quarter pole itself is basically the top of the stretch. So when Kyle said the quarter pole, he meant after the first quarter, not technically
the first quarter.
pole. I knew what you meant, Kyle. I just don't want to be
No,
incorrect
that's fair.
with our facts here. Interesting question from Shelly, the bottom of the screen, guys. Hello, wondering if you guys have compared Sierra Leone to Sovereignty, trying to figure out how their late fractions compare. Shelly, that's a great question, guys. Thoughts on that as I go ahead and actually bring up the PPs and get a definitive answer.
Well,
you want to tackle that?
I mean, they're both obviously very similar styles. Paul, obviously, you considering that you've loved Sovereignty for a long time, I don't know if you can necessarily compare. I don't know if Sovereignty is actually going to be for me, this is actually the way I saw. I don't know if he's going to be as far back as people think. I think he's probably going to be somewhere like third quarter, like of the pack, maybe. I don't think he's going to be like 18th necessarily, but he's going to be up, I think, a little bit up farther than people think. And if he has a closing kick, granted, he's going to have to outrun horses that get the jump on him a little bit, as they do in this type of race. But I don't think they're necessarily that much different than each other in terms of strategy wise, obviously. Oh, Paul's on mute. Unlucky.
I think Sovereignty is a little more of a grinder than Sierra Leone was. I think Sierra Leone probably was more of a one run. I would guess the late speed figures would be pretty similar, but it's just how they go about it. And I do agree with you, Kyle, I think Sovereignty is going to be closer to 10th than 20th in this. So I'm not saying he's going to be anywhere near the lead, but I think he might be closer to mid pack than back of pack, which maybe puts him, 14, 12, 13, 14, somewhere around there.
Just to compare. Oh, sorry. I was just saying, just to compare time form for a second. Sierra Leone going into the race was a 61 early, 120 late, and you had Sovereignty. They have like 76, 114. So Sierra Leone's a little bit more way back, and Sovereignty's a little bit more tactical, if you could call it that, and
a bit slower by the speed figs as well. Just want to point that out.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely slower by the time form. Guys, I looked, and for those of you, let me take this off the screen for a second. For those of you that are not familiar with the show or what we do here, we are partially sponsored by DRF. We greatly appreciate their sponsorship. They've got a great derby package out as well as we do, which we'll talk about a little bit later here. I looked at so we're using a lot of Timeform US to get a lot of this data. And I don't know if you guys looked at it, but I looked at Timeform US Derby field for the first time, literally this afternoon, because I know these horses so well. But what I didn't know really was comparing Timeform figs from one to another. Now, if you're not familiar with Timeform US, the buyers takes into account mainly their final time, right? And how that time compares to others' speed and time on that day at the track. Timeform takes in a pace flow and a lot of other factors. So that's why they're sometimes off. As everyone on the screen knows, the difference is usually between 15 and 20 points less to the buyer from the Timeform. So the Timeform is bigger. Noah, here's the point that I want to make, and we're going to talk about this a lot. Sovereignty, who a lot of people on this show like, and we're not going to give our top picks until the end. Sovereignty's top time form was actually his last race when he lost with a 113 and 112. There are a lot of horses in this race, Noah. Sandman, by the way, right next door is, let me bring this down, pretty slow except for that last race where he got a 118. Before that, the 108 and 111. You compare that with a horse like Journalism, for example. Let me go up to that. Journalism, who is 119 and 121. I mean, it's the Derby. A lot of things can happen, Noah, but in a 10 furlong race, and I have the stats on it, one length is about 1.3. Let me bring this on screen. One length is about 1.3 points in time form figs going a mile and a quarter. If you believe in time form, that means Sovereignty's approximately, 8 points slower. He's got to make up a legit 4 or 5 lengths here, Noah, if you believe in time form on Sovereignty, who's a lot of people's popular second choice.
Yeah, I don't even think it's just time form. If you're just looking at buyers, which people look at buyers more than time forms, I would think he's probably the 5th or 6th fastest horse in the race if you believe in buyers. Sandman's got a faster time. Obviously, Journalism's got a faster number. Excuse me. Rodriguez has faster numbers. He's got triple digits. Tistastic, I think his last race was right there. So I mean, he's quote unquote slow in terms of the 20 horses that we're looking at right now. But it's just whether you think that he's going to improve going a mile and a quarter, while some of these other horses that we know don't want to go that far.
I mean, Kyle, Final Gambit, who I'm a little bit interested in this race, at least underneath, 117 last race on the time form, which equates to like close to 100 buyer. I mean, and he only got a 90 buyer. So they don't always agree with themselves, obviously, which makes it great for a great conversation.
Oh, you're on mute.
And now Noah's.
No, I got the Paul syndrome. Either way, Final Gambit, yeah, I mean, absolutely. But you're talking about on the same length as Sovereignty, right? I mean, look at Final Gambit's previous races to that last one. Exactly. I mean, 88, crazy. 82, 117. So obviously you're taking into account, if you like Final Gambit, that he's going to improve off the 117 and not run back to previous races. But I mean, there's a whole, as Noah touched on, there's a whole ton of horses in here. And speaking of that, you're putting them on the screen right now. The Japanese, even though there's a lot of buzz, especially around Luxor Cafe. I mean, granted, they don't have time form numbers for his best 2 races there, but I mean, 103 is slow, obviously, but I mean, Howard's going through the whole field. There's a ton of horses that are all around the same place, and then you jump to a horse like Journalism and stuff like that, of course, we'll talk about in a little while.
Pete, as I scroll through this, and I'm doing it quickly just because we have a lot of things to talk about, but I think this is a fascinating look for a lot of people, and I think it's got to be discussed. You cannot, ladies and gentlemen, you can't be so biased as to not look at several different speed figures if you have the resource to do so, right? Some people like Equibase, some people like the Sheets, some people like the Rags. There's a zillion things out there. I'm a time form and buyer kind of guy. There's a lot of horses that have a fig in their PPs that could win this damn thing.
Yeah, and I mean that's a lot of times that's the case. I mean, they're here for a reason. Most of them have run at least one big race to get here for the most part. So that's not super surprising. But I mean, yeah, I like to do the same. I like to look at all of them and see if there's disparity between them, or to see and if there's a ton of stuff in the chat about Thorograph and Who's Who and Sovereignty looks really great apparently on the Thorograph figures.
Right,
and so if you look at all those, I think the best thing to do is just you look at what you look at and you compare them. It's not like the best figure wins races, especially the Derby. The Derby's so much about trip and luck and all of that. So it's all tools, it's all data points, and you use what you use. I don't think anything's right or wrong. It's not like Thorograph. If you have a certain pattern, you're automatically going to have the exact pattern in the next race that's going to fit. Yeah. Shit happens, especially in this race. We've seen that many times. We saw that in the last 5 years you put up. I bet Rich Strike didn't have a great pattern coming into the Derby, but you see what happened there. Mystic Dan wasn't on the greatest pattern last year coming in, depending on what figures you looked at. So it's a guessing game. It's the Derby. The Derby's wild, man.
Absolutely.
I would say this. Let me just say this about that, Howard. I think, and I'm going to obviously rationalize because I like Sovereignty, but Thorograph that's a factor because that's every bit as legitimate as all the other ones. But I think the Derby is at least as often, if not more often, one. You have to project progression as opposed to winning it off a past number. Of all the races, they're especially now where they're more lightly raced than ever going into the race, right? The 3-year-olds running this far for the first time, it's like with a future bet, right? You have to project. Well, it's not quite that. At least here, you think you're going to have bet on a horse who's in the gate. But my point is, I think you're betting a horse to progress. And if you look at that, Sovereignty has progressed each of his last 4 races on time form and buyer, I believe. 3 or 4 races.
Yeah, you definitely want to see upticks for sure. Very quickly before I bring on one other co-host who has a story that he wants to share, and it's really a great story for this podcast that could have an unbelievable ending for him. We have a fantastic tip sheet for the Oaks and Derby, just those 2 races. They are going to come out. The tip sheets are coming out Friday morning and Saturday morning. All you need to do is go to our website, hhhracingpodcast.com, click on Power Picks tip sheet at the top, and scroll down to the drop-down menu, Kentucky Derby Oaks. You can find out all about it. It's much less expensive than many of the big packages out there. We're going to bring spot plays, ABC grids, full card both days. It's highly profitable. It's very inexpensive. We have a sample from last year where we this is the Oaks sample where we gave out the Derby guys. And ladies and gentlemen who are watching and listening, there is a deadline. It is Wednesday midnight. So if you happen to catch this as a replay later on after Wednesday, we apologize, but I'm going to be going to the Derby, and administratively wise, it's way too hard for me to get it all together last second. So if you are interested in our tip sheet for the Oaks and Derby exclusively, it's a great find. It's almost 20 pages. The deadline is Wednesday, midnight Eastern. Please make sure you look into that. All right, let's get back to the race, and I want to bring on a special guest who has a future wager going, the biggest future wager that this group has this year. And I'll tell you what, it comes pretty close to the future wager we had last year, not in dollars, but I don't think the dollars is really the point. I think the point of this discussion is the fact that he's alive to a horse at huge future Derby odds. Let's bring him on, the co-host of Bettin' and Boozin' from the Ohio State University, Mr. Charlie Freeman. Charlie, let me ask you a question. How are you feeling, my friend? 5 days out, and you have a future Derby bet on Sandman, the 17, at 125 to 1. First of all, tip of the cap, my friend. How you doing tonight? How you feeling?
Yeah, no, I'm feeling good. Placed it right at the end of Pool 2, which I believe is like end of November / like the 1st of December. Yeah, got him at 125 to 1. Did not expect those odds at all. I mean, I had a feeling I would get something decent based off the money I was taking. I had no idea I'd get there. And yeah, this all started from me trying to channel in my inner Howard and, do research on a bunch of horses, look at some replays, try to find my kind of horse. And, now I remember I told Howard last year with Sierra Leone, I would have happily picked a horse like that too, because I know Pete talked about it too. He knows how much of a sucker him and I are for those kind of closers that roll late. And actually, funny enough, it was the race when he ran against Sovereignty. Sovereignty was rolling to win going away at Churchill that really caught my eyes with Sandman. As I just saw that big, strong gray rolling from, way back and got up for a decent third and a nice gallop out. And I, started to think here, this Sovereignty horse, who actually, another fun fact, I had bet on debut and it did not go well there. But was getting hammered at 15, 20 to 1. I was like, this gray was flying late. That's 99 to 1 plus. Why not take a chance on this one? And yeah, admittedly, the future was only for $10, but at 125 to 1 for a college student, that's not bad money. And considering he's probably going to be 5 to 1 second choice in the Derby, I'd happily take him at 125 to 1. Granted, I didn't love the post position, but I'm just happy to be here.
Like I said, Charlie, you've no need to apologize for how much you're betting. That is not the point. I think it's tremendous. Last year, of course, you were live for 7,500 along with a lot of people, and I was live for 53K. We don't want to get into that, but bet Sierra Leone at 125. Last question for you, Charlie. I want to get back to the handicapping in this race. For people that are interested in future Derby bets, you and I had a conversation. I tried to mentor you and help you along on how to go through the process. What was it about Sandman in particular that you drew to?
Yeah, well, I mean, again, outside of just what I visually got to see, with again his bounding strides and just looking like a horse that was basically just begging for more and more distance. I think that's honestly where it starts. That was some great advice that you gave me for one of my other horses who I ended up using that, shall we say, didn't go so well in Key Waden. That was the one that you really tried
Oh, I
to
thought
tell
you were
me.
talking about Prater. There's so many, Charlie, that didn't work out for
no,
you.
no,
It's
Prater.
just
No,
kidding.
Prater's a different story. If he stays healthy, I stand by what he could have been, but that's a whole nother
Okay.
story.
All right.
But yeah, no, with Sandman, I know that the stat you've talked about a lot is, Tappa haven't won the Derby, which, is fair. But that being said, one thing that they have been able to produce is horses that can get this kind of distance and can close. Also, certainly doesn't hurt when you told me what West Point, from the little, bits that you were able to gather from them,
Yeah.
what they had to say. Obviously, when you see a $1.2 million purchase price as well from a group like them in St. Elias Stable, that, they mean business. And again, I think a lot of it is just having to dig, do a deep dive into what you can for what you know about the breeding, and then also just trying to gather what you can visually and handicapping and trying to figure out what you can make the best of it, and looking beyond just what the number in the buyer says or looking beyond what position they finish. I think, to me personally, the most important factor is the distance more than anything. As someone who likes closers, a big reason why is because they tend to like these longer distances, and everything in his breeding, as well as visually what I saw from him, was just screaming that he was a horse begging for more and more distance.
Yeah, well, it was we want to wish you a lot of luck, Charlie, and good luck. And we'll have you stick on a little bit as we get into the details now of who we'd like individually in this race. I'll tell you what, very interesting point and horse that I remember very well because he won the Illinois Derby. When the Illinois Derby actually counted for points, Kyle, at Hawthorne Racecourse, War Emblem wired the field in the Derby. You guys, you younger guys were barely born when that happened, or weren't born at all, depending on your age. But I certainly, myself, Pete, and Paul remember that horse very well. A Baffert wiring the field. It's not like he hasn't done before. Obviously, he's done it many times with some big time horses. We got a ton of people in the chat. We really appreciate everyone listening and watching. All right, guys, let's get into the nuts and bolts of this race in particular, and who we like. Now, here's what I'm gonna do, guys. I have individual banners for everyone's top four. So, and I'm gonna bring those up. I'm gonna have you guys alone. Pressure. Spotlight. I'm going to put you guys alone up on the screen with your banner to talk about the race, or talk about the top four. Let's try to keep it to, a minute or so, and then we will all expound and give our opinions on your top four. How's that sound, guys? That sound good? All right.
Good to me.
So that is what
Lovely.
we're going to do. Before we do that, this is my favorite part of the show, everyone. The weather. Wow! Oh no, Paul!
I thought we were
Paul.
about the weather. Pete and Paul came in last. We're already doing that.
Okay, it's gonna take 10
It's
seconds.
going to be 65 and partly cloudy after some rain earlier in the week. Now let's move
Done.
on. Thank you.
Okay, there you go. It's gonna be
Move on.
high 60s and sunny and absolutely gorgeous for the Kentucky Derby. There we go. No, there won't be. We're not gonna talk about wet tracks, but it's not gonna happen. It's gonna be fantastic. All right, there you go. And Paul, apparently there was a bird sighting somewhere.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
No, I was just telling
be
you
careful.
you're number one in my heart.
Oh, that is so nice of you, Paul. All right, guys, I think we're gonna go age before beauty, which means, well, of course, you can be both. You
That
can
means
be
I go
both.
first.
Well,
twice.
I'm old age and beautiful,
you are.
so I don't
That's
know how
right.
you. I don't know how
That's
you
right.
count that.
So we're gonna go with our astute colleague, ladies and gentlemen. We're gonna go with Paul Halloran first. I'm gonna bring up your banner, Paul. About a minute on your on what everyone sees on the screen and your opinions for the 2025 Kentucky Derby. Paul, here are your top four. You are up, sir.
Okay, I am going to go with Sovereignty. No surprise, I've been talking about him. I like the progression. I think he just Tappan Street or Tappan Street. There's a Tappan Street in Boston, so I'm going to say Tappan. Got the jump on him. I think Mott is unusually optimistic. He'll never be ebullient, but he's unusually optimistic. With Godolphin and Junior, I'm clearly not 100% objective, but this horse is going to be the second or third choice. I think he's tactical enough to get so he's not in that deep closer situation, and hoping he gets a better trip than Journalism, who is clearly the horse to beat. I put him third. thinking that if he doesn't get the ideal trip, he might just be one of those hard closing thirds that people saying the best horse didn't win. And that'll be fine with me if Sovereignty or East Avenue wins. But Sovereignty is my top selection.
Hey, Paul. By the way, I have 5A horses, so obviously 4 out of 5 I had to pick, and you picked 4 of them. So me and you are in. We're not in the same order,
And
but
I know the
we are
last
pretty
one.
close.
Yeah, I
Yes.
have 3, Pete. I'll be honest with you. I have 3 A's and 2 B's. I'm not going crazy in this race
On the
as
on the
far as
top
how
on
many
the
I'm going
top
to
end.
use.
Yeah, for people not familiar, that basically what Paul's saying is he can't project in his mind a lot of like bombers winning the race. He's got the elite horses on
Yeah, I
top.
mean, I have 5
and-
C's, just
Well,
in
sure,
case.
of course,
You
right.
want to, if you're
Yep.
right in the 4 races previous, you want to have some
yeah.
bombs.
Yep.
But yeah, on the win end, I have 5 serious horses.
And you've got
And
Burnham
Terry
Square.
Frank asked about East Avenue. I think in this race, East Avenue is either going to win, maybe second, or not be a factor. So that's why he's not in my top 4. Trust me, I will be rooting for East Avenue the hardest because
we know
I do
that.
have a future bet on East Avenue, and Charlie did a much better job with his futures as far as risk reward than me, but it would still be a fairly rewarding circumstance if he were to win.
And you've got Burnham Square second. You also have Final Gambit in 4th. So, Charlie, you weren't here earlier when we talked about the pace scenario. Let me throw this to Charlie and then Noah real quick. You can respond, Noah. Charlie, do you see this as Paul, which I think it's fair to say based on his picks could be a real pace meltdown? Obviously, you're hoping for that for Sandman, but is that how you envision the race, Charlie?
Yes, no, absolutely. I see a ton of pace. I feel like in previous years we've seen less pace than this on paper, and there's still been plenty of it, if not more than we could ever expect. So I feel like in a year where you're already expecting it, I've been, keeping up with certain workout tabs. I know you guys touched on it earlier, like with Citizen Bull, what he's doing. I mean, Owen Almighty, East Avenue. I just feel like there's so many different horses here that have to be dead cents. And I feel like an interesting theme you guys talked about is there's so many horses that have only been successful when they've been on the lead and been able to wire the field. Yeah. So I anticipate there's going to be a lot of pace. My picks are going to reflect that. And obviously, selfishly, I'm also hoping there is pace.
Well, no, that's my thinking, and I'll get to my picks as the last person. I'll go last, but it just feels like the better horses in this race happen to be the closers. So it's hard for me to envision a speed horse win this race because not only because of the potential pace scenario, but it just feels like the better horses are the closers.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I don't really have much else to say. I agree with most of what Charlie said, and I don't need to, preview my picks or anything. But that's kind of how I reflected. Okay. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. We can go ahead and move on to the young gun, Pete Visco.
All right, yeah, let's go on to Pete Visco. Pete, you are up here. Your 2025 Kentucky Derby selections. Go ahead, Pete.
All right, so mine aren't that different from Paul, except I have a horse that he did not have in the top 4 on top. And to me, this is one of those years where I don't have necessarily a win bet that I think I love this horse so much I have to bet this horse to win. But I just like Luxor Cafe. I just like the visual style that he won with. And when you watch the race, he just looks like a horse to me. From a breeding standpoint, I think the distance is going to be his friend. From a tactical standpoint, I think and I hope, especially from the post that he drew, that he is going to be one of those. There's a lot of closers like we've been talking about that are going to be potentially stuck a little further back where they may have traffic trouble. They may just leave themselves a little bit too much to do. I'm hoping Luxor Cafe can be the one that sits in that second flight. I hope there's a ton of speed up front. He sits behind, he attacks, he can get the lead, get first run. And just if he can hold up for the 1.25 miles, which again, I think his breeding and the way he looked visually says he can do, I think potentially he can hold off the closers. I go to Journalism second. Journalism's the best horse in the race. He's been the best all season, but he's got 4 races, 3 of them against 4 other horses. So this is going to be a lot different for him. But again, he's tactical enough. He has enough of a late kick. I think he's just really good. And figure-wise, he's really good. Basically, there's nothing wrong with Journalism except potentially you don't like the races he's been in. Sovereignty, again, Paul said everything. I don't need to say too much about Sovereignty. I agree with most of what he said. He could be one that potentially can get a little bit lost in the shuffle, a little bit far back, but he looks to be peaking right at the right moment. And Final Gambit, if he takes to the dirt, I think with that late kick, if all hell breaks loose, I think he's going to be coming late. And I picked 4 horses that I thought could win the race, not like here's a horse that I want to put in the money. This is a horse that I could potentially have on an A line in horizontals or verticals. So I'm down to those 4. And then the other one I had on my A line was Burnham Square, sort of with Paul. And then I had 2 more, Sandman and Rodriguez, in sort of consideration. They were the last sort of cuts on the B line, but yeah, that's where I'm going.
Pete, I know Matt Miller likes Luxor Cafe. We will see. He's a fascinating, and it would be, of course, the first win ever for Japan. They've come awfully close before. We'll see if Luxor Cafe can be the first Japanese winner of the Kentucky Derby. Mr. Roscoe, Kyle, you're going to be up, sir. Let's see where you're going to go for the 2025 Kentucky Derby. There's your picks on the bottom of the screen, and you are up.
And I know Pete's going to clown me for this, but he has an You have I have at least a minute before you can clown me for it. Look, guys, it came down to 2 simple things for me. One, there was only 1 horse that I thought could beat journalism this year. And unfortunately, my future bet is now no longer in the race and probably out of racing. So that leaves me with 1 horse. And the only thing that could dissuade me was if he drew the 1, he drew the 1920, something like that, and he draws the 8. I am going to play every single bet singling journalism. I think he's the biggest standout in this field. I don't really think anyone touches him in this race unless someone takes a big step forward. And again, I could be completely clowned for this in a week, and that's just the way it'll be. But in order to try and maximize my bets on a horse that I know is going to be the favorite and hammered in probably everything, I need to take a stand, and I need to either play him or completely get rid of him. And I'm going to play him and play him hard in doubles, pick 3s, everything you can imagine, everything into journalism. Rodriguez is one of those horses I feel like has probably one of the biggest chances to have the lead at the top of the stretch. So if he's not tested, I think he can definitely go on with it. Sovereignty, everything's been touched on, and Pete touched on Luxor Cafe. I thought there's many others I could have thrown in 4th, but he's the biggest wild card, and I think visually, I think he is he's probably the one I want to have in 4th just from a wild card standpoint.
And now I should read off the numbers for our audio listeners. Of course, they can hear the horse we're talking about. Kyle's going 8, 4, 18, 7. Paul went 18, 9, 8, 3. Pete went 7, 8, 18, 3. I wonder if anyone else is going to chalk out in this race on this screen. It's going to be fascinating to see if anyone else on the screen takes journalism. He's the most likely winner. I don't think anyone's going to argue that, Kyle. And you got to take stands. We talked about that. Go ahead, Pete.
Can I just say, because Kyle was joking that I was going to clown him, I 100% agree with the way he did it, because I look at the Derby similar, where there's some years, and I talked about this on one of the other shows, where I love a horse, and I can bang him to win, and I can look for a few horses underneath in exactas, and have screwed up that a few times. But look for exactas, doubles, triples, get supers, everything you can around that horse. And I like to be in that position. I just haven't happened to be in the last couple of years. But if you're in that, I don't care if they're the favorite. It's the Derby. You get prices. The biggest Derby win I've ever had monetarily was American Pharaoh. And the top 4 were all, Pharaoh was the favorite. The top 4 were all reasonably priced. But if you bet it correctly, you could still make a ton of money, because it's the Derby and the pools are still going to be big. So I agree with everything you said, Kyle. If you love them, go nuts.
And you're talking about it to where and obviously it really sucks from my future bet standpoint that Japan Street's out, but from a day of betting standpoint, because if he wins, I was definitely going to be willing to play more on Japan Street to win. And look, Jim Pilars, you're a very astute man. I'm just telling you, that's the way it goes. But the only horse I thought could beat him was the horse I had my large future on, was Japan Street. With him out, 1 and go. That's it.
I like.
Okay, there you go. Look, no one's gonna criticize you for taking the best horse in the race, or I don't think they should. Now, how you bet the race is a whole different conversation,
correct,
which we'll have coming up in 9 o'clock Eastern. Correct. Is that right? Okay.
Yep.
All right. Let's go to Noah. Noah, my friend. Again, he's
Wait, I'm not that young.
Oh well, I guess we're going. Okay, we go in reverse order. We'll go Charlie.
Oh, I'm older than no. I thought we were going.
Yeah.
on
All right.
this
No problem. All right. We'll
You
go.
can tell, hey Howard, you could tell they're young because they're arguing about being older. Me and Paul would have argued. You and Paul would have said we
Good,
would have
fair
argued for
point.
to be the youngest ones.
Fair point. All right. So we'll go with Charlie next. I don't want to upset these guys. Charlie's pick coming up on the screen. Charlie's going 18, 17, 8, 10. What a trader again, guys. Not only in the Derby draft, but now on the live show, he's not even going to pick his boy on top, Sandman. Charlie, I'm just kidding. You can do whatever the heck you want, my friend. You are up.
Look, I'm trying to give my best opinions and what I actually think will happen and how I'll be betting, especially because I already have Sandman, so I'm in a position to hedge. Look, the year that Mage won, and I ended up getting fortunate enough because Forte scratched out, I had Mage after Forte. The reality was, since Forte scratched, I got to move him up. Even though I love Sandman and he's my horse, and yeah, of course I want him to win for my future. The reality is, I think Sovereignty is the most talented horse in the field. I think Sovereignty is going to get the jump on Sandman, which makes me a little nervous. And I have a feeling we're going to end up having a showdown between the two where Sandman's just going to have a little too much to do. And I don't love that 17 spot. That hole hasn't won before. And unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be this time. But look, I hope I'm wrong, and I don't think it's impossible. So I'm just going to roll with Sovereignty. Look, when you look at his race, 2 back, he was not supposed to be ready at all for the Fountain of Youth. Everybody was against him. I stuck with him there, and he got the job done. He was rolling late against Tapan Street. That was kind of a warm-up race for the Derby anyway, and he nearly got there against a horse in Tapan Street who needed that race. I have all the confidence in the world with him. Gets Junior back as well. I think he's the horse to beat and the most talented horse in the field. Moving into Sandman, that being said, he's a horse who's been crying out for distance, begging for the opportunity. He's certainly a funky one who's still figuring things out. You know, in the Southwest, completely stumbled at the start, missed the break. It was a disaster. His race looked over. He was flying late and just couldn't get there. Then in that coal battle race, 2 back in the Rebel, just wasn't able to get there that day. Sat way too far back with Christian Torres. And then Jose Ortiz made sure to, get the jump on him a little sooner, even though they were going fast, and not leave himself with too much to do. He started acting a little funky again in the stretch, but once he straightened out, started pulling away again. I absolutely think he can get there. I just have some concerns. Then moving into Journalism in third. Look, he's probably the most talented horse and makes all the sense in the world. But like Kyle said, at the end of the day, you either have to completely stand with him or just stand against him. And for me, he's going to be an underlay. He's been running against small fields. I don't think anybody in California outside of him is any good. So I'm going to bank on that. And then in fourth, I went with Grande. I saw somebody in the chat say something about finding Mage. And to be honest, I think Grande could be the Mage of this field. A lightly raced Gulfstream horse who's getting better and better, had a really tough trip last time. And I don't think it's Dylan Davis's fault. That's just the way the race developed. He's getting better and better visually to me with every start. In a race where Rodriguez should have realistically, and he's been a trendy pick, gone on to win by 6 with the trip Grande got. Grande was able to cut it to 3 and cut in there. And I also took Pete's approach, which I respect a lot. I'm not looking for the top 4 for who I guarantee think is the safest bet, or else I maybe would have gone with a Burnham Square publisher. I'm going with the 4 horses I think could realistically win the Derby. And for me, before Tapan Street scratched, I had 5 realistic winners. When he scratched, I got down to 4. These are the 4 horses that I think could win it. And what I think makes Grande interesting also is he's going to have a huge jump on all of these horses. I think he could work out a perfect stalking trip.
Yeah, he could.
And yeah,
He
Rodriguez
could.
might be the one turning for home first, but I think Grande is going to get the first jump before these closers.
Yeah, Grande, look, you're the only one so far on the screen that has Grande in the top 4. I wouldn't discount him at all. He's improving. He's getting better. All right, we have 2 more people left. Mr. Maher, it is your turn. Noah Maher's 2025 Kentucky Derby selections are, wow, look at the love for Sovereignty right there. Is massive Sovereignty love.
Boy, Sovereignty might be the favorite in this race. I mean, God, you might get 10 to 1 on Journalism, Kyle, at this rate with these guys pushing the price down.
Noah is going 18, 8, 7, 17. Noah, the floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, so I'll try to be as short and sweet as possible. Sovereignty and Journalism will be the only 2 horses that I will be using in the race. Unless Luxor Cafe is at a price that I cannot pass up, then I will be using 3. Our good friend Matt Miller would love that, and of course Pete would love that. But they're the 2 best horses from the 2 best preps. So those are the 2 that I will be using from trying to take a stand like my boy Kyle. And then I've got Sandman in 4th, who I think is probably the best bet to finish in the top 4. But unfortunately, I do not think he can win the race. So those will be the only 2 that I will be using. And that will be the stand that I take.
Noah, you're a very sharp handicapper, young man. I have a lot of respect for your work. How do you, how do you justify yourself in your picks going with the top 2 likely betting choices in a 20-horse Derby field? How do you wrestle with that? Because I know you're like me. We do a lot of research. We do a lot of time form study. We do a lot of video study. We're both trying to beat chalks. I would say, like, in general, we're happy to take a chalk if it's there in any race, but you're going only with basically the top 2 choices in your horizontals. So how do you square that with yourself?
Yeah, and it's not creative, but the way that I approach the race, I look at the horses, I decide which horses I think want a mile and a quarter and which horses don't. And then from there, I decide, we talked about it earlier, horses that I think will kind of be on the up and up, and we will see the best of them on Saturday. And I don't have to bore people with, why I like them or why I think they can get the job done. But that's just the 2 that I'll be using, and it just doesn't make a lot of sense from a value perspective to use others unless, like I said, Luxor Cafe is at a reasonable price.
And last quick question, Noah, do you think Sovereignty will be second choice over Sandman
No.
at the post?
Third choice.
Third choice. Okay. I agree with you. Actually, there's just gonna be a lot of buzz on. I mean, Sandman could be 9-2. That would not shock me. It would not shock me at all. The Derby betting is completely crazy. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, last year, look, Sierra Leone didn't quite do it for us, but he ran an unbelievable race. Anyone that knows me in the show knows I'm honest as I can be. I bet with my head, not with my heart. I want to try to give the best opinions that I possibly can, and I'm going to do the same today. And I think this might surprise some people that are watching, listening. But here is my 2025 Kentucky Derby prediction. I am going 8, 18, 4, 9. Kyle, my friend, I've never been called a chalk eating weasel, but look, I got to do it, ladies and gentlemen. Gerald's just simply the best horse in this race. Now, just because I'm publicly picking him on top does not mean I would put a win bet on him. In fact, there is no way in hell that I'm going to put a win bet on journalism at 5-2. I wouldn't even put a win bet on him on 3-1. I would need 4-1 to put a win bet on journalism. But that doesn't mean that I can't pick him on top. He's simply the best horse in this race, and it's not being very creative. I agree in general with a lot of the guys that have been on the show with us tonight, co-hosting, especially with Kyle and Noah. You can get creative. You can pick a 25-1 shot. It absolutely can happen. The Kentucky Derby is crazy. What I like most about journalism, ladies and gentlemen, this is not Fierce's from last year. He's professional. He's had a little bit of trouble. He's run very fast. He's somewhat tactical. He's got a rider that knows him well. If you don't know Michael McCarthy, he's an excellent trainer. He gets a fantastic post. In theory, he gets a great setup. There's just way too many things for me to like journalism in this race to not pick him on top. Now, I'm going to use a lot of horses in my horizontal bets. I'm going to disagree with Kyle a little bit on there. I could use up to 7, 8, 9 horses depending on the horizontal bet I'm making. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about pick 3s, pick 4s, pick 5s, it pick 6s, etc. Because it is the Kentucky Derby. I don't think journalism lays over the field at all. Please don't mistake what I'm saying. He's just the best horse. I'm going Sovereignty in second. That is the horse I'd probably put a win bet on, ladies and gentlemen. If he's anywhere above, I would say 6, 7, 8, so above 6-1. That is a probably a big win bet incoming for me. And I've got Rodriguez third. I've gone back and forth, but I think he's clearly the best speed in this race, and I am not. I refuse, and I'll put everyone on screen here. I refuse to let Bob Baffert in this race in 2025 beat me out of certain exotics. That is no way that's going to happen. I think he's pretty talented and might get the trip, so I'm going to have him third. And I Burnham Square, who we haven't talked a lot about tonight. I think he's pretty good, guys, and he's going to get the race flow, so I've got him in fourth. I'm fading Luxor Cafe and Sandman. I just have too many questions on both of them, but could they win? Absolutely. It wouldn't shock me if either of them wins. You have to take stands, and I'm going 8, 18, 4, 9 in the 2025 Kentucky Derby. Guys, as we end the show, I've got to scroll on
Howard,
the bottom
can I ask
with
one
all
question?
of our picks. Go ahead, Pete.
would anybody change their top 4 if Baeza gets in? I'm just curious. No,
I would
for
not.
everybody. Okay, Kyle.
Kyle
No.
hasn't answered.
He's gonna be over bet. No.
Okay, and I just wanted to check because I didn't want to
Yep,
not
fair
have
question.
him mentioned on the show.
Fair question. Now I'm going to the chat, seeing my people completely disagree with me here. You know what? Brian's the one I think mentioned Warren. Thanks, Brian, for joining the show. I published her in my in our future Derby draft, our Derby draft. He's interesting. I just think this is a really tough spot for him to get into the top 4, but I think it's absolutely possible. I do like publisher. I mean, look, Sandman's a really nice horse. Luxor Cafe could be good. There's a lot of pretty good horses in this race, but when you're going top 4, you absolutely have to take a stand. Guys, we're going to wrap it up here in just a minute because there's a live show coming on 25 minutes, which is going to be great. So stay tuned on how you bet the Derby. Quick wrap around, guys, 30 seconds. Final thoughts on the 2025 Kentucky Derby. Pete, we're going to start with you.
Well, it's the Derby, so it's a great race. It's a great betting race. I think the one thing you saw from this panel is we have a lot of the same horses, so at least we're thinking the same, and we're thinking a little bit in line with the odds. But it's going to be fun like always, and hopefully all of us can find a way to cash some tickets.
Kyle, we'll just go in order on the screen here.
No, all good. Yeah. Look, and I agree with what everyone said. It's the Derby. Anything can happen. Taking a stand somewhere, and this is the stand I feel best about. It's going to be a great race, as it always is. Obviously, you guys are going, so have fun. It's going to be an absolutely fantastic time. But like I said, good luck to everyone in the chat. And yeah, tune in at 9 p.m. Eastern time right after this show, as we're a bunch of the young guys. We're all going to come up with ways that we're going to try and play the Derby. And obviously, I'm going to need to do something, because if he's going to be 5-2, we got to find some value somewhere.
Noah Maher.
Content with what's been said. The only thing I'll add is hopefully Charlie and I can be victorious in this year's Derby fantasy draft. Looking forward to that.
Yeah,
I can't agree with that, but we'll see what happens. Paul Halloran.
Yeah, well, I am. I'm going with my boys in blue. As I said, I do like Sovereignty objectively, and I think East Avenue did the best at the draw, probably other than journalism. So I am really hoping one of the Godolphin horses wins, which comes as a surprise to nobody, and that's fine.
And Charlie Freeman.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm just happy that to get to this spot. Obviously, wish I could be there in person, but unfortunately, graduation has to come first. So going to be a very big
happy
weekend for me.
graduation, by the way, as well.
Thank you. I'm hoping it can start off with the pleasant surprise of Sandman winning the Derby. I agree with Noah. I'm hoping we can bring it home in our thing, and I really do like our team, and we have a strong chance. And yeah, with Sandman, I mean, look, obviously, I'm hoping he gets it done for me and wins this thing. At the end of the day, I just want to see him make his run. If he gets out of trouble, if he gets his chance, and everybody gets to see that bright gray horse rolling for home and he runs his heart out, that's all I'm asking for. I know the 17 post has not been lucky, but there's a first for everything, and I'm really hoping he gets it done. But again, at 125-1, I think we'd all agree at that point. You're just happy to be there and just hoping for the best. And I'll tell you what, it's a lot better value than the 5-1 others and probably have to get on.
Yeah. Good luck, Charlie, and good luck, Paul, with your future bets. Both you guys, congratulations for even getting to this point. Before I close out, I want to first thank everyone for watching the show. We greatly appreciate your support. If you want to help the HHH Racing Podcast, other than the obvious, which is supporting us through our various amounts of Power Pick tip sheets and Derby Oaks package and whatever, go to our website, hhhracingpodcast.com. We also have some information below this video player about our regular Saturday tip sheets. But you know what? If you just subscribe to the YouTube channel and then also follow us on X right there at HHH Racing Podcast, we'd be very happy with that. So please follow us on X and subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm very excited about this Derby, guys. It's my third one in a row. I also want to thank Churchill Downs for giving us media credentials once again and just proving that we are nationally recognized as one of the best podcasts out there for horse racing. I'm going to be there along with Patrick Kunzel, Matt Miller, and his wife. That is the first time that those three will have ever been to the Derby, which is very exciting for them. And then Noah also will be joining me for his second Kentucky Derby. The last thing I want to say, I think I can speak for everyone. I hope it's a great race. I hope all the horses and jockeys come back safely, and it would be great if it's a close finish. And please, no crazy bumping or inquiries or controversial, finishes. Let's just have a great race and let the best horse win. And of course, we want everyone there at home wish you a ton of success in
Who's
your
that guy?
bets. Kelly Dorman. Kelly Dorman, the
that guy?
father of Cody Dorman and Kylie Dorman. What's up? Thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it, Kelly. For Pete Visco, Kyle Roscoe, Noah Maher, Paul Halloran, and Charlie Freeman, this has been your host, Howard Kravitz, the HHH Racing Podcast 2025 Kentucky Derby preview. Crush your bets in this year's Derby. Take care, everyone. Have a great night. Bye-bye.
If you have not followed his Triple H horse racing podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.